Right now, in Russia, there's this huge debate happening. And it's not about the usual stuff like politics or the economy. No, this one hits a lot closer to home for millions of people. It's about the very foundation of the education system. And it all kicked off with one pretty explosive statement. It all started with this. Vladimir Medinsky, a top presidential aide, dropped a bombshell. He called Russia's standard 11-year school system an unaffordable luxury. He said education needs to be compressed to get kids into the workforce faster. And just like that, his words ignited this massive national conversation about what school should even be for. So that's the big question on everyone's mind. Should Russia actually shorten its 11-year school system? And as we're about to see, the answer to that question could have ripple effects that go way, way beyond the classroom. To really get what's going on, here's what we're going to do. We'll dig into why some people want this change, then we'll see how the public is reacting. After that, we'll take a look at some fascinating history that sounds weirdly familiar. And finally, we'll connect all of this to a much bigger trend that's happening across Russia today. Okay, first up, let's break down the argument for change. Why are some really influential people pushing for this? What's the logic behind shortening school? So the thinking here really boils down to economics and pragmatism. Proponents are basically saying that students are spending way too much time on general education. By the time they're done, it's too late to start job training. A compressed system, they argue, would be more efficient. It would create a faster pipeline of workers, especially for those really important hands-on technical jobs. And for some, it's also about going back to a more Soviet-style model, where education was really focused on serving the needs of the state. But as you can probably guess, not everyone is on board with this idea. Not by a long shot. In fact, it has split opinion right down the middle, not just with the public, but even inside the government. And when you look at the public, the reaction has been pretty clear. A recent poll found that a solid majority, we're talking 60% of Russians, are flat out against shortening the school year. Only about 30% are for it. That is a major public pushback. And the government's official response? Well, they're being pretty cautious. The Minister of Education himself, Sergei Kravtsov, didn't exactly jump on board. Instead, he said, hey, let's pump the brakes. He thinks the current system works, and before they even think about making such a huge change, they need to have a broad, professional discussion and really look at all the risks. Okay, but here's where this whole thing gets really interesting. This debate might feel very new, but it's not at all. To really understand what's happening now, we have to jump back in time, over 100 years ago, where we find a parallel that is just uncanny. Check this out. It's an academic journal, and inside there's an article that uncovers an old experiment from the early 20th century. And the goal of that experiment, it was almost exactly what's being talked about today. So way back then, the Russian Empire set up these things called city schools. The whole point was to give kids a shorter, more practical, more hands-on education compared to the traditional elite high schools or gymnasiums. And when you put them side by side, wow, the parallels are just striking. More than a century ago, the state was laser-focused on creating a faster path to practical jobs, making clerks, technicians, civil servants. Today, the words are a little different, but that goal of a faster pipeline into the workforce, it's the exact same logic. History really does rhyme. This history lesson brings up a really important question. Is this whole debate just about the school curriculum, or is it part of something bigger? To figure that out, we need to zoom out and see how this all fits into a larger pattern of state control over technology and information. So let's just ask it plainly. Is this really just about how many years kids spend in a classroom? Or is this one piece of a much larger puzzle about what kind of information and what kind of tools the next generation of Russians gets to use? When you start looking at other things happening in Russia recently, a pretty clear pattern starts to emerge. A pattern of more and more state oversight, both inside the classroom and out. Okay, first, there's a new bill being drafted to regulate artificial intelligence in schools. One of its proposals is to cap the amount of AI-generated text in any school paper at just 30%. But here's the real kicker. This isn't just about stopping students from cheating. The proposed law actually says that the AI models themselves have to follow state-defined traditional Russian spiritual and moral values. So it's not just regulating the use of the tool, it's regulating the tool itself to fit a specific ideology. Second piece of the puzzle. Outside of school, the Kremlin is pushing government workers off popular foreign apps like Telegram and forcing them to use a new domestic messaging app called Max for all their official business. And why are they doing this? Well, the official goal is to create a priority information system. All the content on this new platform is going to be managed by a state-backed organization. It's a clear move to build a centralized, government-controlled digital space away from those foreign platforms that are just harder to keep an eye on. So, when you put it all together, a push for a shorter, more state-directed education, new rules for the AI tools that students can use, and a state-controlled digital world, it all leads to one fundamental question. Is the end goal here just to create a more efficient workforce, or is it something bigger? Is it about finding a more effective way to shape the information environment and, in the end, shape the minds of the next generation? The answer to that is going to define the future of education in Russia and maybe a whole lot more.